hundreds of Indonesian pilgrims have been stranded at airports after Saudi Arabia suspended foreigners from entering the country for religious travel and tourism.
We still don't know what will happen, whether it's a delay or what. We're still waiting, but our bags were checked in.
The ban aims to prevent the spread of a new coronavirus and affects visitors from around 24 countries that have reported infections. Saudi Arabia is home to the two holiest sites in Islam, Mecca and Medina, and welcomes millions of Muslims for the Umrah and Hajj pilgrimages each year.
Protecting pilgrims, protecting the two holy mosques and the sacred sites, God forbid, from the arrival of this disease is very important. Saudi Arabia feels a sense of responsibility. Therefore, we took these temporary decisions, which will constantly be reviewed.
While Saudi Arabia hasn't reported any cases, infections outside of China, where the outbreak originated, have spiked.
It's what's happening in the rest of the world that's now our greatest concern.
Italy has the highest number of cases outside Asia. Romania, Denmark and Norway on Thursday confirmed their first cases. And France is on high alert after a second patient died from the virus. Paris Fashion Week kicked off in the absence of Chinese buyers and with many attendees brushing off health concerns. But French President Emmanuel Macron has warned an epidemic is inevitable.
We have to be transparent about the information we have so our fellow citizens know and can prepare without creating unnecessary panic at the same time. We're facing a crisis, an epidemic is on its way, and we know that some countries are already more affected than we are. It means that we have to organise ourselves differently at each stage, and we will have to face it as best we can.
On the other side of the Atlantic Ocean, US President Donald Trump has tried to minimize fears.
Because of all we've done, the risk to the American people remains very low. And we have the greatest experts in the world, really in the world, right here. We're ready to adapt and we're ready to do whatever we have to as the disease spreads, if it spreads.
US stocks moved deeper into the red as global markets fell for a sixth straight trading day on Thursday. The downturn has wiped out more than $3.5 trillion in value. While much about the coronavirus remains unknown, its impact on both human and economic health is becoming quite clear. Sibel Karkus, TRT World.
Well, for more on the outbreak, let's go to Muhammad Munir, a virologist at Lancaster University in the UK. Welcome back to the program, Muhammad. Now, as I mentioned earlier, the continuing and worsening outbreak has caused even more turmoil on stock markets. In the US, investors there seem to be responding to what the CDC has had to say, confirming that a man in North California has contracted the virus, but its origin is unknown. What does that mean? Why is that of particular concern to the CDC?
Yeah, I mean, we have two really main strategies to control infection. One is called containment, another is mitigation. So containment is something that what we are trying to do now, like identifying people who are positive and then isolating from the rest of the community to intervene the transmission. So now it seems like that the containment is no more effective. This would not be a solution to contain the infection. That also means that the risk of the transmission from one person to another person will increase. That's what we call community spread. And the infection, not only in USA, but in many other countries, some are reported, some remain underreported. That is continuously happening. Once that happens, then it's time for the pandemic and then the mitigation plan has to be put in place.
Yes, and this issue of whether or not it's a pandemic has really got investors worried as well. The World Health Organization, for its part, says the epidemic hasn't yet reached pandemic proportions. How soon do you think it will reach or become a pandemic, if it will at all?
Well, if we look on to the definition of disease, of any disease to become a pandemic, it is already fulfilling the criteria required to define a disease as a pandemic. Because what is really defined is to be honest, this is just a legal term. It does not indicate the severity of the condition. It does not depict any other situation other than that the disease has been more than one continent, and that is what we have started seeing before. Like if we talk about 2 weeks before, the situation was different because majority of the cases were in Asia, but now that is not the case any longer. We have now spikes in Italy, in other countries. So now the situation is already there. It's just a matter of tagging it at one point.
Interesting. Now, as we've been covering in our several conversations together, this outbreak has been compared to the 2003 SARS outbreak, which was another form of coronavirus, as you explained. But this particular outbreak seems to be less deadly. I guess that's a good sign overall, isn't it?
Well, it depends how you look into it. When we say it's less deadly, it means what is the percentage of the people who are dying because of the infection. So small proportion of a big number is equal to what we see in SARS. For example, if you just look at the history of this COVID-19, just 2 months old, already 3,000 people are dead. These are 3 times more than what have died in SARS in 1.5 years. So although the proportion of the case fatality, which is the number of dead people out of the infected, is low, but that proportion, if we have in a larger community, that number is significant.
Okay, Muhammad Munir from Lancaster University, it's always good to get your analysis. Thank you again.